In a bustling shopping center where strangers pass by without a second glance, one compassionate mechanic's life changed forever when he discovered three frightened 8-year-olds huddled together near the food court, abandoned with nothing but a hastily scribbled note. What Thomas Martinez didn't know was that their mysterious disappearance had triggered a desperate search by one of Silicon Valley's most powerful CEOs. A woman who had been watching from the shadows, unable to reclaim what she'd lost to circumstances beyond her control. For 2 years, he raised Maya, Sophie, and Grace as his own, never knowing their brilliant mother was closer than he imagined, building an empire while her heart remained broken. This isn't just a story about unexpected guardianship. It's about how love transcends wealth, how second chances can heal the deepest wounds, and how sometimes the families we choose become stronger than the ones we're born into. If stories of quiet heroism, impossible coincidences, and the power of unconditional love move you, join us as we discover how one man's kindness created a miracle that would unite two worlds. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. The morning sun filtered through the windows of Martinez Auto Repair, casting long shadows across oil-stained concrete floors, while the familiar sounds of a small business coming to life filled the air. The gentle hum of the compressor, the soft radio playing classic rock from the corner, and the distant chirping of birds outside created a symphony that Thomas Martinez had grown to love over the past 15 years. At 35, he had built something solid here in Riverside Heights, a modest neighborhood where front porches still held rocking chairs, where corner stores knew their customers by name, and where people looked out for one another without being asked. The scent of motor oil, mixed with the aroma of freshly brewed coffee from the small pot he kept on a workbench, creating an atmosphere that felt more like home than workplace. Thomas wiped his hands on a worn blue rag, the fabric soft from countless washings, as he surveyed the day ahead. 3 cars waited for his attention. Mrs. Henderson's reliable Honda that needed an oil change, young Jake Miller's truck that had been making concerning noises, and the Patterson family's minivan that had seen better days, but still faithfully carried them through their daily routines. This was Thomas's world. Practical, honest, built on trust and hard work. He had inherited the garage from his uncle Roberto, who had taught him that every engine had its own personality, every car its own story. "Listen to what they're telling you, mijo," Roberto used to say, his weathered hands guiding Thomas's younger ones. "Cars don't lie. They show you exactly what they need if you pay attention." The wisdom had served Thomas well, both with engines and with life. He had learned to listen, to observe, to understand the subtle signs that revealed deeper truths. It was this skill that had prepared him, though he hadn't known it at the time, for the 3 most important arrivals of his life. "Uncle Tommy!" The familiar chorus of voices echoed from the small apartment above the shop, followed by the thundering of feet down the wooden stairs that connected their living space to the garage below. Maya appeared first, as she always did, her dark curls bouncing with each step, her school backpack slung over one shoulder with the casual confidence of a natural leader. At 10 years old, she had already developed the protective instincts of an older sister, constantly checking on Sophie and Grace, organizing their schedules, and making sure everyone had what they needed for the day ahead. Sophie followed close, behind, her artistic eye already taking in the way the morning light played across the tools hanging on the pegboard wall. Where Maya was practical and organized, Sophie saw beauty in unexpected places, the way oil created rainbow patterns on concrete, how shadows could transform ordinary objects into something magical. Her sketchbook was never far from her side, filled with drawings that captured moments most people overlooked. Grace brought up the rear, moving with the careful deliberation of someone whose mind was always working several steps ahead. In her hands, she carried a book that was undoubtedly too advanced for most 10-year-olds, but Grace had never been limited by what was expected for her age. Her teachers had long since stopped trying to assign her grade-appropriate reading material, instead simply marveling at her ability to grasp complex concepts with the ease most people reserved for simple tasks. 2 years. It had been 2 years since that life-changing afternoon at Westfield Mall, when Thomas had discovered 3 terrified little girls huddled together near the abandoned food court, clutching each other as if the world had suddenly become too large and frightening to navigate alone. The memory was still crystal clear, their tear-streaked faces, their mismatched clothes, the way they had looked at him with eyes that held both hope and wariness, as if they had learned not to trust too quickly, but still desperately wanted to believe that someone, somewhere, would choose to care about them. The crumpled note in Maya's small fist had changed his life forever, though the words had been heartbreakingly simple. "I can't give them what they deserve. Please find them a better life." No explanation, no contact information, no hint about who had written those desperate words or what circumstances had led to such an impossible choice. Thomas had done what any decent person would do. He had called. The authorities reported the situation and waited for someone to claim 3 obviously loved and well cared for little girls. Social services had launched an investigation that stretched on for weeks, but no missing persons reports matched the triplets. No frantic family members came forward. No relatives appeared to reclaim them. It was as if Maya, Sophie, and Grace had simply materialized from nowhere, carrying only their names, their remarkable intelligence, and a bond between them that nothing could break. The temporary placement had stretched into months, and months had somehow become permanent when no other options emerged. Thomas had found himself navigating a world he had never imagined. Parent-teacher conferences, bedtime stories, braiding hair, and bandaging scraped knees. He had learned about growth spurts and growth charts, about the importance of consistent bedtimes and healthy snacks, about how 3 different personalities could exist in such perfect harmony, while still maintaining their unique individual traits. "Pancakes?" Sophie asked hopefully, her artistic hands already reaching for the mixing bowl they kept on the lower shelf specifically for Saturday morning traditions. "Always pancakes on Saturday," Thomas smiled, ruffling her hair with the gentle affection that had become as natural as breathing. "Maya, can you set the table? Grace, help your sister with the batter, but don't let her add too much vanilla again." "It was an artistic choice," Sophie protested with mock indignation, though her grin revealed she was perfectly aware of her tendency to experiment with recipes. "Art is good," Thomas replied, pulling ingredients from the refrigerator. "But we also need to be able to eat the results." He watched them move around the small kitchen with practiced ease, their morning routine as familiar and comforting as the sunrise. Maya organizing everything with quiet authority, making sure napkins were folded properly and orange juice glasses were filled to the same level. Sophie turning even the simple task of mixing pancake batter into something resembling performance art, her movements fluid and deliberate. Grace measuring ingredients with scientific precision, applying mathematical principles to ensure perfect ratios every time. The local elementary school had initially struggled with their placement. 3 brilliant girls with no educational records, no birth certificates, no documented past, but Thomas had advocated fiercely for them, attending every meeting, asking every question, ensuring they received the opportunities their sharp minds deserved. He had worked extra hours to afford tutoring when Maya showed an aptitude for coding, art supplies when Sophie's talent became undeniable, and advanced books when Grace exhausted the regular curriculum. The community had embraced them all, treating the unusual family as if they had always belonged. Mrs. Chen from next door brought them soup when anyone felt unwell. The librarian, Miss Rodriguez, reserved the newest books for Grace and helped Maya access coding tutorials on the public computers. The local art teacher, Mr. Foster, stayed after school to work with Sophie on advanced techniques that challenged her growing skills. "Tommy," Grace said quietly, looking up from measuring flour with the same serious expression she applied to solving complex mathematical equations. "Do you think our mom ever wonders about us?" The question hit Thomas like it always did, a gentle but persistent ache that reminded him how much he didn't know about their story, how many questions remained unanswered despite the beautiful life they had built together. He knelt beside Grace, meeting her intelligent eyes with the same honest kindness he had shown them since that very first day. "I think," he said carefully, choosing each word with the precision of someone who understood the weight they carried, "that anyone who brought 3 amazing people like you into this world thinks about you every single day. And I think they would be incredibly proud of who you're becoming. What Thomas didn't know was that 50 miles away, in a glass tower that pierced the Silicon Valley sky, Aurora Edwards was staring at a photograph of 3 little girls with dark curls and bright eyes, her successful tech empire forgotten as she whispered the same names he had just heard: Maya, Sophie, Grace. What he couldn't have imagined was that his simple, honest answer was more accurate than he realized, that somewhere in the world, someone was indeed thinking of them every day, counting the hours since she had seen their faces, and building an empire with the sole purpose of ensuring they would never want for anything, even if she could never hold them again. The afternoons were always the hardest for Thomas Martinez. When the last customer drove away, and the familiar sounds of the garage settled into quiet contentment, when homework was spread across the kitchen table upstairs and the girls were absorbed in their individual pursuits, the questions would creep in like shadows, lengthening across the shop floor. They came without invitation, these doubts that gnawed at the edges of his confidence and whispered uncertainties into the spaces between his steady breaths. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story. He stood at the window of their small apartment, dish towels still in his hands from cleaning up after dinner, watching the evening unfold in the neighborhood below. Maya was helping Mrs. Chen from next door carry bags of potting soil to her back garden, her 10-year-old frame struggling slightly with the weight, but her determination never wavering. Sophie sat cross-legged on the front steps, her latest sketchbook balanced on her knees as she captured the way. The setting sun painted golden highlights across the weathered buildings across the street. Grace had claimed her favorite spot in the old armchair by the window, completely absorbed in a book about quantum physics that she had discovered in the adult section of the library, her young face wearing the intense concentration of someone wrestling with concepts that challenged graduate students. They had adapted so completely to this life, woven themselves so seamlessly into the fabric of Riverside Heights, that sometimes Thomas forgot they hadn't always been here. But then moments would surface, fragments of memory, glimpses of confusion, questions that revealed the depths of what they didn't know about themselves, and he would remember that beneath their confident exteriors lived 3 little girls who carried mysteries they couldn't even name. The adoption papers sat on his desk in the bedroom, still unsigned after 18 months of consideration. Social services had finally closed their investigation and recommended permanent placement, their caseworker speaking with the tired efficiency of someone who had seen too many cases end less favorably. "They need stability, Mr. Martinez," she had explained during their last meeting. "You're the only family they've known, the only security they can remember. These papers are just a formality at this point." But Thomas wrestled with doubts that kept him awake during the quiet hours before dawn. He was a mechanic with a high school education and calloused hands, raising 3 brilliant girls who deserved opportunities he wasn't always sure he could provide. Maya had taught herself 3 programming languages from library books and YouTube videos, creating websites that impressed adults with decades of experience. Sophie's artwork was sophisticated enough to make the local art teacher pause in wonder, her understanding of color and composition revealing an innate talent that demanded proper nurturing. Grace had corrected her mathematics teacher's equations, politely, respectfully, but accurately, and was now working through calculus textbooks while her classmates struggled with basic multiplication. "Am I enough?" he whispered to the empty room, voicing a question that had become his constant companion. "Am I giving them what they need, or am I holding them back from something better?" The girls had never asked about their past in those early months, too traumatized and overwhelmed to think beyond the basic comfort of safety and regular meals. But as they had grown more secure in their new life, as trust had replaced fear and routine had provided stability, curiosity had begun to surface like tender shoots pushing through winter soil. Sophie had started drawing faces in her sketchbook, shadowy figures with kind eyes and gentle expressions that she claimed came from dreams she couldn't quite grasp upon waking. When Thomas asked about them, she would shrug with the casual dismissal of someone too young to understand the significance of persistent subconscious memories. "Just people I think I used to know," she would say, adding careful shading to cheekbones. That looked familiar in ways she couldn't explain. Maya had begun asking questions with the systematic approach of someone debugging code. Methodical inquiries about why they looked different from Thomas, why they didn't share his last name, why their memories before that day at the Westfield Mall felt fuzzy and incomplete, as she described it. She approached the mystery of their origins with the same logical precision she applied to programming problems. But unlike her coding projects, this puzzle refused to yield clean solutions. Grace, always the most direct in her observations, had recently asked if their biological mother might have been intelligent like them, if that explained where their academic abilities originated. "Genetics are fascinating," she had announced over breakfast one morning, her scientific curiosity overriding any emotional complexity. "I've been reading about inherited traits, and our cognitive patterns seem too similar to be coincidental." Thomas had no answers to give them. The investigation had revealed nothing useful, no missing persons reports that matched their descriptions, no leads that went anywhere meaningful, no family members searching for 3 lost girls. It was as if Maya, Sophie, and Grace had materialized from nowhere, carrying only their names, their remarkable intelligence, and a bond between them that nothing could break or explain. Late at night, when he balanced the garage's books and worried about college funds he couldn't possibly afford on a mechanic's salary, Thomas found himself wondering about the woman who had written that desperate note. Had she been scared, desperate, protecting them from something terrible, or simply deciding that 3 daughters were more responsibility than she wanted to handle? He would catch himself studying their faces sometimes, looking for clues in the curve of Maya's determined chin, or the way Sophie's eyes lit up when she discovered something beautiful, or the thoughtful frown Grace wore when wrestling with complex problems. Someone had given them life, had held them as babies, had been the first to hear their voices and see their smiles. Someone had shaped their earliest years, had taught them to be kind to each other, had instilled the values that made them such remarkable little people. The questions multiplied in the quiet hours. Had their mother been young, alone, facing circumstances that made caring for 3 young girls impossible? Had the decision to leave them been made in desperation or calculation? Did she think about them now, wonder how they were growing up, regret the choice she had made? Most troubling of all was the possibility that somewhere out there, someone was missing them. That Maya's leadership abilities, Sophie's artistic talents, and Grace's brilliant mind were gifts passed down from a parent who might be searching for them still. The thought that he might be keeping them from someone who loved them, someone who deserved to know they were safe and happy and thriving, weighed on his conscience like a stone. But then morning would come, and Maya would appear at the top of the stairs with her hair in messy braids, asking if she could help with breakfast. Sophie would hum quietly while setting the table, already planning her next art project. Grace would emerge with a new book tucked under her arm and a dozen questions about everything from photosynthesis to planetary orbits. They would move around the small kitchen with the easy familiarity of a family that had grown together naturally. And Thomas would remember that love wasn't just about biology. It was about showing up every day, about being present for scraped knees and hurt feelings, about celebrating small victories and providing comfort during disappointments. Whatever questions remained unanswered about their past, one thing was absolutely certain. Maya, Sophie, and Grace were exactly where they belonged. They had found each other in the most unlikely circumstances, had built something beautiful from the fragments of an incomplete story, and had created a family that was stronger for having been chosen rather than simply inherited. What Thomas couldn't have known was that 50 miles away, Aurora Edwards was asking herself the same questions, wondering if the daughters she had been forced to give up were safe, happy, loved, wondering if the impossible choice she had made to protect them had been worth the price of her broken heart, wondering if a woman who had built an empire in technology could ever find a way to bridge the distance between the life she had created and the family she had never stopped loving. The sleek black Tesla Model S pulled into the gravel parking lot of Martinez Auto Repair like a midnight shadow gliding into daylight. Its polished obsidian surface reflected the morning sun with mirror-like precision, creating an almost ethereal glow that seemed to announce its arrival to every corner of the modest neighborhood. Thomas looked up from under the hood of Mrs. Patterson's faithful old Buick, wiping his hands on his coveralls as he watched the luxury vehicle settle into the space between his pickup truck and young Jake Miller's work van with the quiet confidence of something that clearly didn't belong but had arrived with undeniable purpose. The driver's door opened with the soft whisper of German engineering, and a woman emerged who seemed to carry her own atmosphere of sophistication and carefully controlled power. She was tall and elegantly proportioned, dressed in a charcoal business suit that probably cost more than Thomas made in a month. Its tailored lines speaking of boardrooms and high-stakes meetings where millions of dollars changed hands with the stroke of a pen. Her auburn hair was pulled back in a perfect chignon that hadn't been disturbed by the morning's drive, and she moved with the fluid precision of someone accustomed to having her time respected and her decisions followed. Without question or hesitation, Aurora Edwards surveyed the modest garage with sharp, green eyes that missed nothing. The hand-painted sign that Thomas had touched up every spring for 15 years, the collection of vintage tools that had belonged to his uncle Roberto, the small apartment windows above where morning sunlight revealed glimpses of colorful artwork taped to the glass like flags of creativity and joy. Her gaze lingered on those windows with an intensity that seemed to pierce through glass and walls, as if she could see through to the lives being lived in the space beyond. "Are you Thomas Martinez?" she asked, her voice carrying a slight tremor that betrayed the composed exterior she worked so hard to maintain. The question emerged with the careful pronunciation of someone who had practiced saying his name, who had rehearsed this moment in her mind countless times before gathering the courage to actually live it. "Yes, ma'am. What can I do for you?" Thomas approached with the easy confidence of someone comfortable in his own domain, instinctively straightening his shoulders as he took in the details of this unexpected visitor. Something about this woman put him on alert. Not fear exactly, but the sense that she represented a world far removed from his own, a universe of complications and consequences that had no place in the simple honesty of Riverside Heights. "I need some work done on my car," Aurora said, though both of them could clearly see that the Tesla was in immaculate condition. Every surface gleamed with showroom perfection, from the chrome trim to the pristine tires that showed no signs of wear beyond the most minimal contact with asphalt. It was obviously a vehicle that received meticulous care and regular professional maintenance, the kind of automobile that came with service plans and warranty coverage that rendered neighborhood mechanics unnecessary. "I was told you're the best mechanic in Riverside Heights," she continued, her eyes flickering nervously toward the apartment windows above, as if drawn by an invisible force she couldn't resist or explain. Thomas glanced at the pristine vehicle, then back at her face, noting the subtle signs of tension around her eyes, the way her perfectly manicured fingers trembled almost imperceptibly as they gripped the handle of her expensive leather briefcase. Her composure was flawless on the surface, but underneath he could sense something else, an emotional current that ran deeper than automotive concerns. "Well, I appreciate the recommendation," he said carefully, "but that's a pretty sophisticated machine you've got there. You might be better off at the Tesla service center downtown. They've got all the specialized diagnostic equipment, certified technicians who know those systems inside and out." "No," Aurora said quickly, the word emerging with more force than she had intended, revealing a desperation she immediately tried to cover with professional calm. "I prefer to support local businesses. Besides, I've heard you're very good with complex problems." There was something in the way she emphasized those last words that made Thomas study her more carefully. She was nervous, he realized with growing certainty. Beneath the polished exterior of success and sophistication, this woman was fighting to maintain control over emotions that threatened to overwhelm her carefully constructed facade. "All right," he said slowly, his mechanic's instincts telling him there was far more to this situation than a simple automotive repair. "What seems to be the problem?" Aurora opened the hood of the Tesla, though she clearly had no idea what she was looking at in the spotless engine compartment. Her movements were uncertain, the actions of someone following a script rather than genuine mechanical knowledge. "It's been making a noise when I drive, a sort of humming sound." Thomas bit back a smile, recognizing the fundamental misunderstanding that revealed her lack of automotive experience. Electric vehicles hummed by design. It was the sound of the motor operating normally, as natural and expected as breathing. But he nodded with professional seriousness, understanding that this charade served a purpose beyond mechanical diagnosis. "I see. That could be any number of things with a hybrid system like this. Might take a few days to diagnose properly, maybe even a week, depending on what we find." Relief flooded Aurora's features so quickly and completely that Thomas was now certain his suspicions were correct. She wasn't here about the car at all. Whatever had brought this sophisticated stranger to his modest garage, it had nothing to do with automotive maintenance and everything to do with something far more personal and complicated. "That would be perfect," she said, her voice carrying a grateful tone that seemed disproportionate to the simple offer of mechanical service. "I'm staying at the Riverside Inn while I'm in town on business. Take all the time you need." As she gathered her purse and briefcase, preparing to leave the Tesla in his care, the sound of laughter drifted down from the apartment above. Three distinct voices blending in the kind of spontaneous joy that only comes from genuine happiness and complete security. Aurora froze at the sound, her carefully composed mask slipping as her eyes shot toward the windows with unmistakable longing, hunger, and something that looked very much like recognition. "You have a family?" she asked, trying to sound casual, but failing to hide the tremor in her voice that suggested the answer mattered far more than politeness required. "3 girls," Thomas said, his voice warming with the pride that always accompanied any mention of Maya, Sophie, and Grace. 10 years old now. They're the best part of my day, every single day." Aurora's hand tightened on her briefcase handle, with enough force to make her knuckles white beneath the carefully applied polish. When she spoke, her voice carried a quality that Thomas couldn't quite identify, something broken and wistful and filled with a longing that spoke of profound loss. "How wonderful," she managed, the words emerging as barely more than a whisper. "They're very lucky to have you." There was something in the way she said it, a weight of meaning that suggested she understood exactly how precious such relationships could be, possibly because she had lost something similar herself. Thomas felt an unexpected pang of sympathy for this polished stranger who seemed to carry a burden he recognized, the particular weight that came from loving someone you couldn't protect or hold close. As Aurora walked back to her car, she paused at the driver's door, looking up once more at the apartment windows where three silhouettes moved behind the translucent curtains, like shadows of a life she had once known. Thomas watched her drive away in her pristine Tesla, wondering what had really brought her to his garage, wondering why her hands had been shaking when she thought he wasn't looking, wondering why she had stared at those upstairs windows with the intensity of someone seeing something infinitely precious that remained just beyond reach. What he couldn't have known was that Aurora had been driving past his shop for weeks, gathering the courage to do what she had finally accomplished today, taking the first tentative step toward the daughters she had never stopped loving, never stopped watching from a distance, never stopped hoping she might someday prove worthy of again. What he couldn't have imagined was that this sophisticated stranger who had just entrusted him with her car was the same desperate woman who had written that heartbreaking note 2 years ago, the same broken mother who had made the most impossible choice of her life in the hope that someone better than herself might give her precious girls the future they deserved. Over the next few days, Aurora found herself returning to Martinez Auto Repair with a frequency that would have seemed excessive to anyone observing from the outside, but felt entirely necessary to her increasingly desperate heart. Each visit brought a new, carefully constructed excuse, questions about the diagnostic process, concerns about potential complications, requests for recommendations about local restaurants and accommodations. She told herself she was simply being a conscientious customer, ensuring her expensive vehicle received proper attention, but the truth was far more complicated and infinitely more painful. She would arrive each afternoon precisely at 3:15, having discovered through careful observation that this was when Maya, Sophie, and Grace returned home from Riverside Elementary School. She would park across the street, ostensibly reviewing business documents on her tablet while actually watching through the garage's windows as three familiar figures bounded up the stairs to their apartment, their young voices carrying clearly across the quiet neighborhood air. Thomas found himself looking forward to Aurora's visits with a mixture of curiosity and growing concern. There was something almost desperate in the way she lingered, asking questions that seemed designed more to extend their conversations than to gather actual information. She would sit in the small waiting area he had set up near the front of the garage, her expensive business attire looking wildly out of place among the worn chairs and automotive magazines, but her attention focused entirely on the sounds from upstairs. "They sound remarkably bright," Aurora observed one Thursday afternoon, her eyes tracking the ceiling as footsteps moved overhead with the energetic chaos that only comes from young people completely comfortable in their own space. "Scary bright," Thomas chuckled, adjusting a wrench that didn't really need adjusting, using the familiar motions of his work to mask his growing suspicion that this conversation was about far more than automotive repair. Maya's been teaching herself programming languages from library books. Sophie can create artwork that makes professional artists stop and stare. And Grace reads physics textbooks the way most kids read comic books. Aurora's coffee cup trembled almost imperceptibly. In her perfectly manicured hands, the only visible sign of the emotional earthquake occurring beneath her composed exterior. She had known, of course. The private investigators' reports had been thorough and detailed, but hearing Thomas speak about their individual talents with such obvious pride and genuine affection created a complex mixture of gratitude and heartbreak that she struggled to process. "How old did you say they were?" she asked, though she knew the answer down to the exact number of days. 10 now, Thomas replied, his voice warming with the automatic affection that always accompanied any mention. "Of the girls, they were 8 when they came to live with me." "Came to live with you?" Aurora's voice was carefully neutral, but Thomas caught the sharpness beneath it, the way someone might sound when approaching information they desperately needed, but feared to hear. He glanced up from his workbench, studying her face with the same careful attention he applied to diagnosing engine problems. There was something in her expression that he couldn't quite identify. Hope, fear, and recognition all tangled together in a way that suggested this wasn't casual curiosity. "I'm not their biological father, if that's what you're asking," Thomas said honestly, setting down his tools to give her his full attention. "I'm their guardian. They needed a home, and I had one to give." Something flickered in Aurora's eyes, a flash of emotion so intense it was almost physical. She set down her coffee with deliberate precision, her hands not quite steady despite her best efforts to maintain composure. "That was very generous of you," she managed, her voice carrying undertones that Thomas couldn't decipher but somehow recognized as significant. "Wasn't generosity," Thomas said with the simple honesty that defined most of his interactions with the world. "Was love. From the first moment I saw them, huddled together in that mall, scared and alone, they became mine. Not legally, not then, but in every way that actually mattered." Aurora went very still, her breathing carefully controlled in the way of someone fighting not to reveal too much. "The mall?" Thomas nodded, unaware that he had just confirmed what Aurora had been hoping and fearing to hear. "Westfield Mall. Someone had left them there with just a note. Strangest thing, 3 incredible girls, and no one came looking for them, like they'd just appeared out of nowhere." Aurora's hands clenched in her lap, hidden beneath the table, but tight enough to leave marks on her palms. She knew she should leave, should maintain her distance, but she couldn't stop herself from asking the question that had haunted her for 2 years. "What did the note say?" Thomas's expression softened with memory, his voice gentle as he recalled that life-changing moment. That whoever left them wanted them to have a better life than they could provide. Said they deserved more than what they were getting. Aurora stood abruptly, her chair scraping against the concrete floor with a sound that seemed too loud in the quiet garage. "I should go. I have dinner reservations at the inn." But as she hurried toward the door, Thomas called after her with the instinctive kindness that had made him reach out to 3 frightened girls 2 years earlier. "Aurora, if you don't mind me saying, you seem like someone carrying a heavy load. Sometimes talking to a stranger helps. Sometimes it's easier than talking to people who think they know your whole story." She paused with her hand on the door handle, her back to him, shoulders rigid with the effort of maintaining control. When she spoke, her voice was barely above, a whisper carrying the weight of 2 years of guilt and longing and desperate hope. "Some loads are too heavy to share, Thomas, and some choices can't be undone no matter how much you regret them every single day." Her words hung in the air long after she had driven away, leaving Thomas standing alone in his garage with the growing certainty that Aurora Edwards was far more connected to his girls than she was letting on. There had been something in her voice when she talked about choices and regret, something that spoke of intimate knowledge rather than general sympathy. That evening, as he helped Maya with her coding homework, and listened to Sophie describe her latest art project, while Grace explained a fascinating article she had read about theoretical physics. Thomas found himself studying their faces with new questions. Aurora's green eyes, he realized, were remarkably similar to Grace's. The determined set of Maya's jaw reminded him of something he had seen in Aurora's expression. Sophie's artistic way of seeing the world seemed to echo something he had glimpsed in their mysterious visitor. Meanwhile, 50 miles away in her sterile hotel room, Aurora sat surrounded by photographs she had carried with her for 2 years. Pictures taken from a distance, moments stolen from the life she had given up. Maya at a school science fair, her renewable energy project earning first place with the same systematic brilliance Aurora remembered from her own childhood. Sophie's artwork displayed in the community center window, revealing a talent that had emerged and flourished under Thomas's patient encouragement. Grace reading on a park bench, completely absorbed in a book about quantum mechanics, her young face wearing the same expression of intense concentration that Aurora saw in her own. Childhood photographs. They were thriving, happy, loved in ways that Aurora's complicated life had never been able to provide. Everything she had hoped for when she had made the most impossible choice of her life was right there in those stolen photographs. 3 little girls growing up secure and cherished and free from the dangers that had forced her to let them go. But seeing them so close, hearing Thomas speak about them with such genuine affection and unshakable devotion, had awakened a longing she had tried to bury in boardrooms and business acquisitions. They were her daughters. No matter what circumstances had forced her to give them up, no matter how much safer and happier they were without her complications in their lives, they were still the 3 little people who had once called her Mama, who had been the center of her universe before that universe had collapsed around them all. The question now was whether she had any right to disrupt the beautiful life they had built with the man who had saved them when she couldn't. Whether love sometimes meant staying away, even when every instinct screamed to hold them close. Whether a mother's heart could ever truly accept that the best thing for her daughters was to remain a stranger in their lives. Aurora began spending more time at the garage, her initial pretense of automotive concerns gradually evolving into something that resembled genuine friendship, though the undercurrents of her hidden truth made every interaction feel like walking across thin ice. She would arrive each afternoon just as the school day ended, ostensibly checking on her Tesla's progress, but actually timing her visits to coincide with the moment when 3 familiar voices would echo down from the apartment above, sharing the details of their day with Thomas in the easy rhythm of a family completely comfortable with each other. The waiting area of Martinez Auto Repair had never been designed for extended occupancy, but Aurora had somehow made herself at home among the mismatched chairs and outdated automotive magazines. She would sit with her tablet open, occasionally typing responses to urgent emails from her Silicon Valley office, but her real attention remained focused on the sounds from upstairs. Maya's animated explanations of coding problems she was solving, Sophie's excited descriptions of art projects taking shape in her imagination, Grace's endless questions about everything from photosynthesis to planetary orbits. Thomas found himself adjusting his work schedule to accommodate their conversations, discovering that Aurora Edwards possessed a sharp intelligence that complemented her obvious business acumen. She asked thoughtful questions about his work, showing genuine interest in the mechanical puzzles he solved each day, and her observations about the neighborhood revealed someone who noticed details that most visitors overlooked completely. "You've built something special here," Aurora observed one Tuesday afternoon, her eyes taking in the way Mrs. Chen waved from her garden next door, how young Jake Miller stopped by just to chat about his truck's performance. The easy familiarity that existed between Thomas and everyone who crossed his path. "It's not just a business, it's part of the community," "Riverside Heights takes care of its own," Thomas replied, wiping his hands on a rag that had seen countless similar moments. "When the girls first came to live with me, people just stepped up. No questions, no judgment, just help when it was needed." Something flickered across Aurora's face, gratitude mixed with something that looked almost like envy. "They're lucky to have grown up somewhere like this." "We're all lucky," Thomas said simply, and Aurora felt her chest tighten at the unconscious way he included himself in that assessment. The automatic assumption that he belonged here as much as anyone else, despite having chosen this life rather than being born into it. One rainy Wednesday afternoon, as Aurora sat reviewing quarterly reports while listening to the familiar sounds of homework and after-school snacks being prepared upstairs, Grace appeared at the top of the stairs, leading down to the garage, her curious green eyes fixed immediately on the elegant woman sitting in the waiting area, taking in every detail with the systematic attention she applied to everything that interested her. "Uncle Tommy?" Grace called, her voice carrying the directness that characterized most of her observations. "Who's the lady with the pretty clothes?" Aurora's breath caught as she got her first close look at her youngest daughter in 2 years. Grace had grown taller, her dark hair reaching past her shoulders now, but those intelligent eyes, Aurora's own eyes, inherited across generations, were unmistakable in their sharp focus and genuine curiosity. "This is Miss Edwards," Thomas said gently, setting down his tools to give the moment proper attention. "She's having her car worked on. Grace, this is Aurora." Grace descended the stairs with the careful deliberation she applied to most physical activities. Her attention focused entirely on Aurora with the intensity of someone solving a particularly interesting puzzle. "You have the same eyes as me," she observed with characteristic matter-of-factness, tilting her head slightly as she studied Aurora's face. Aurora felt her throat constrict, the simple observation hitting her with unexpected force. "Do I?" Green with little gold flecks around the edges. "Maya says that means we're both analytical thinkers, but Sophie says it just means we see pretty colors in everything." "Both of your sisters sound very wise," Aurora managed, her voice carefully controlled, despite the emotional storm building inside her chest. "They are," Grace agreed, with the confident assessment of someone who had never doubted her family's intelligence. "Maya's teaching herself advanced programming languages, and Sophie can make ordinary things look magical in her drawings. Want to see what Maya's working on? She built a website for Mrs. Chen's flower shop." Before Aurora could formulate a response, Grace had disappeared back upstairs, her footsteps echoing with purpose across the ceiling. Within moments, she returned with Maya and Sophie trailing behind her, drawn by curiosity about the visitor who had somehow earned Grace's immediate attention. Aurora's heart nearly stopped as she saw all 3 of her daughters together for the first time in 2 years. Maya had inherited Aurora's natural leadership qualities, evident in the way she positioned herself slightly in front of her sisters, her posture protective but not hostile. Sophie hung back with the careful observation of someone whose artistic eye was already cataloging every detail of this unexpected encounter. Grace bounced slightly on her toes with barely contained excitement about sharing her family's accomplishments with someone new. "This is Maya and Sophie," Thomas said, his voice warm with the pride that always accompanied introductions of his. Girls, this is Miss Edwards." Maya stepped forward with the confidence of someone accustomed to meeting new people, but wise enough to remain cautious. "Are you really here about car repairs, or is there another reason you keep coming by?" The question was delivered without hostility, but with the directness that Aurora remembered from her own childhood, when she had similarly challenged adults who seemed to be operating with hidden agendas. The recognition was so sharp, it felt physical. "Maya," Thomas warned gently, but Aurora held up a hand to indicate she wasn't offended. "It's a perfectly reasonable question," Aurora said, meeting Maya's challenging gaze with the respect it deserved. I am having my car looked at, but I've also been enjoying the conversations with your uncle. He's told me wonderful things about all of you, and I've been curious to meet the remarkable young women he's so proud of." Sophie stepped forward slightly, her artistic curiosity overcoming her natural shyness. "You dress like the important ladies in the business magazines at the library. Are you someone famous?" Aurora smiled genuinely for the first time in days. "I work in technology, creating computer programs and applications. I help companies solve problems using software and data analysis." "Like Maya," Grace exclaimed with obvious delight. "She made Mrs. Chen's website look professional, and she's learning about database management." "Did she?" Aurora's eyes lit up with authentic interest and barely concealed pride. "That's incredibly impressive for someone your age. Most adults struggle with the concepts you're already mastering." Maya's cautious posture softened slightly at the genuine praise. "It's just basic HTML and CSS with some JavaScript functionality. Nothing too complicated. Those are the fundamental building blocks of everything I do professionally." Aurora said earnestly, "You're already working at a level that surpasses most high school students, and many college graduates I've interviewed couldn't explain those concepts as clearly as you just did." The conversation that followed felt like the most natural thing Aurora had experienced in years. She found herself genuinely engaged with her daughter's individual interests and talents, asking Maya detailed questions about her coding projects, admiring Sophie's latest sketches with the eye of someone who understood artistic vision, discussing Grace's advanced reading with the enthusiasm of someone who remembered the joy of intellectual discovery. Thomas watched this interaction with growing amazement. Aurora's entire demeanor had transformed in the presence of the girls, her polished businesswoman facade melting away to reveal warmth and authentic engagement that made her seem almost familiar, as if he had seen this version of her before in some half-remembered context. As the afternoon progressed and Aurora reluctantly prepared to leave, Sophie surprised everyone by approaching her with a small, folded piece of paper, her expression shy but determined. "I drew this for you," Sophie said quietly, her artistic hands trembling slightly as she offered the gift. "Because you have kind eyes, and because you made Maya smile when she talked about coding." Aurora unfolded the sketch with hands that weren't entirely steady, revealing a remarkably detailed portrait that captured not just her physical features, but something deeper. Sophie had drawn her with softer expressions than she typically wore, had somehow seen past the business armor to capture vulnerability and longing that Aurora hadn't realized she was displaying. "This is absolutely beautiful, Sophie," Aurora whispered, her voice thick with emotion she couldn't quite hide. "Thank you so much. I'll treasure it." "Will you come back tomorrow?" Grace asked hopefully, her question carrying the innocent assumption that adults who were kind and interesting would naturally want to return. Aurora glanced at Thomas, who nodded encouragingly, his expression suggesting that he had somehow reached his own conclusions about her motivations and found them acceptable. "I'd like that very much," she replied, meaning it more than she had meant anything in years. As she drove back to the Riverside Inn that evening, Aurora stared at Sophie's drawing on her passenger seat and allowed herself to imagine, for the first time in 2 years, what it might be like to be part of their lives again, not as the biological mother who had abandoned them, but as someone who cared about their futures and wanted to support their dreams. But the weight of everything they didn't know about her pressed down like a stone in her chest, growing heavier with each moment of genuine connection, each flash of natural affection, each trusting smile that was built on the foundation of her carefully maintained deception. The emergency call came at 2:30 on a Friday afternoon, just as Aurora was settling into her usual spot in the garage's waiting area with her tablet and the cup of coffee Thomas had started preparing automatically each day. The shrill ring of the garage phone cut through their comfortable routine like a blade, followed immediately by Thomas's sharp intake of breath as he answered, "Martinez Auto Repair." "What? When?" "I'll be right there. I'll be right there." Aurora looked up from her quarterly reports to see Thomas's face drained of color, his weathered hands gripping the phone with white-knuckled intensity. Something was terribly wrong. She could see it in the way his shoulders tensed, in the sudden rigidity of his posture that spoke of a parent's worst nightmare beginning to unfold. "There's been an accident at the school," Thomas said, his voice tight with barely controlled panic as he grabbed his keys and jacket. "A bus collision during the field trip. They're taking the kids to Riverside General, but they can't tell me over the phone how bad. I have to go." Aurora was on her feet before conscious thought could intervene. Her business instincts kicked into crisis management mode, even as her heart hammered with maternal terror she couldn't acknowledge. "I'll drive you," she said firmly. "You're in no condition to be behind the wheel right now." Thomas looked at her with desperate gratitude, too frightened to question the offer or wonder why a virtual stranger would immediately involve herself in his family emergency. "The Tesla's faster than my truck," he managed, and Aurora was already moving toward the door. The drive to Riverside General Hospital passed in a blur of controlled speed and tense silence. Aurora navigated the afternoon traffic with the precision of someone accustomed to high-stakes situations, while Thomas sat rigid in the passenger seat, his phone pressed to his ear as he tried repeatedly to get more information from hospital staff, who could only repeat that 3 students from the field trip were being evaluated for injuries. "Maya's the responsible one," Thomas said suddenly, his voice breaking slightly as he stared out the window at the passing cityscape. "She always makes sure Sophie and Grace stay close to her. If something happened to them, she'll blame herself. She always takes care of everyone else first." Aurora's hands tightened on the steering wheel, fighting the urge to reach out and comfort him, to share the burden of fear that was threatening to consume them both. These were her daughters too, her babies, who had once fit in the curve of her arms, who had taken their first steps toward her outstretched hands, who carried her genes and her stubborn determination to protect the people they loved. The hospital's emergency department was controlled chaos when they arrived. Worried parents clustering around the reception desk, medical personnel moving with practiced efficiency. The antiseptic smell that always seemed to carry promises and threats in equal measure. Thomas approached the registration desk with Aurora close behind, his mechanic's composure completely shattered by parental terror. "I'm looking for my girls," he said, his voice hoarse with emotion. "Maya, Sophie, and Grace Martinez. They were in the bus accident from Riverside Elementary." The receptionist consulted her computer screen with professional calm that felt almost cruel in the face of Thomas's obvious desperation. "They're all being examined now. Maya and Grace have minor injuries, some cuts and bruises, nothing serious. Sophie is still being evaluated for a possible concussion." Aurora felt her knees almost buckle at the words, "possible concussion." Her mind immediately flooding with worst-case scenarios, drawn from every parenting article she had ever read during those precious early years. Thomas swayed slightly beside her, and without thinking, she reached out to steady him, her hand finding his arm with automatic familiarity. "Can we see them?" Thomas asked. "The doctor will be out shortly to update you. Please have a seat in the waiting area." The next hour stretched like an eternity. Thomas paced the small waiting room like a caged animal, while Aurora sat rigidly in one of the uncomfortable plastic chairs, both of them lost in their own spirals of worry and guilt. She found herself remembering Sophie as a toddler, the way she would run headlong into adventures without considering consequences, always trusting that someone would be there to catch her if she fell. The irony was devastating. She had given them up to keep them safe, and now they were hurt anyway, and she was powerless to help them. When Dr. Patricia Nguyen finally emerged from the examination area, both adults were on their feet immediately, hanging on her every word as she delivered her assessment with the careful kindness of someone who understood that medical information could either destroy or rebuild a parent's world in the space of a sentence. "All three girls are going to be fine," she began, and Aurora felt oxygen return to her lungs for the first time in an hour. "Maya has some bruising on her shoulder and a few stitches in her palm from broken glass, but nothing that won't heal completely. Grace twisted her ankle and has some scrapes, but X-rays show no fractures. Sophie gave us the biggest scare with a mild concussion, but her cognitive tests are normal and she's responding well." "Can we see them?" Thomas asked, his voice raw with relief and residual fear. "Absolutely. They've been asking for you constantly. Maya's been trying to take care of her sisters even with her own injuries, and they're all worried about you worrying about them." Dr. Nguyen led them through a maze of corridors to a pediatric examination room where three small figures sat on a single hospital bed, huddled together in the instinctive formation that had probably kept them safe during the accident itself. Maya sat in the middle with her bandaged hand resting protectively on Grace's uninjured leg, while Sophie leaned against her older sister's shoulder with a gauze patch covering a cut on her forehead. "Uncle Tommy," Grace called out when she saw him, and all three girls reached toward him simultaneously with the desperate need of people who had been scared and wanted the comfort of someone who represented absolute safety. Thomas crossed the room in 2 strides, gathering all three of them into his arms, with the careful desperation of someone who had just confronted the possibility of losing everything that mattered. Aurora hung back near the doorway, watching this reunion with her heart breaking and healing simultaneously, grateful beyond words that they were safe, devastated that she had no right to be part of this moment of profound relief and love. "We're okay," Maya said into Thomas's shoulder, her voice muffled but determined. "I made sure everyone stayed together, just like you taught us. Sophie got hurt because she pushed Grace out of the way when the glass was falling. I'm proud of all of you," Thomas replied, his voice thick with emotion as he held them close. "So proud of how you took care of each other." It was Sophie who noticed Aurora standing uncertainly in the doorway, her artist's eye catching the emotional complexity written across Aurora's face. The relief, the longing, the careful distance she was maintaining despite obviously wanting to be closer. "Miss Edwards," Sophie said softly, lifting her head from Thomas's embrace. "Are you okay? You look scared too." Aurora stepped forward hesitantly, her composure cracking as she met three pairs of eyes that were looking at her with genuine concern, despite their own recent trauma. "I was worried about you," she admitted, her voice barely steady. "When your uncle got the call, I was so frightened that something terrible had happened." Grace studied Aurora's face with her characteristic directness, noting details that adults often missed. "You looked like you were crying," she observed matter-of-factly. "Maybe a little," Aurora confessed, kneeling beside the hospital bed so she was at their eye level. "Sometimes, when people we care about get hurt, it makes us cry even when we know they're going to be okay." Maya reached out with her uninjured hand, touching Aurora's arm with the natural generosity of someone who had been raised to offer comfort when it was needed. "Thank you for driving Uncle Tommy to the hospital. He gets really scared when we're hurt, and it's better when he's not alone." The simple gesture nearly undid Aurora completely. Here was her eldest daughter, injured and frightened herself, thinking first about Thomas's emotional needs and including Aurora in their circle of care without hesitation or reservation. The trust implicit in that touch, the easy acceptance of Aurora as someone who belonged in their crisis, was both a gift and a weight she wasn't sure she could bear. As the evening progressed and discharge paperwork was completed, Aurora found herself naturally integrated into their recovery routine. She helped Grace navigate the hospital corridors with her twisted ankle, carried Sophie's backpack when the concussion made movement uncomfortable, and listened to Maya's detailed account of how she had kept her sisters calm during the chaos. Following the accident, on the drive home, with all three girls safely secured in the Tesla's back seat and Thomas riding beside her with visible relief, Aurora felt something shift in the complex equation of their relationship. She was no longer just the mysterious woman who came to visit the garage. She had proven herself in crisis, had shown up when they needed help, had earned a place in their story through actions rather than just words. But as they pulled into the familiar parking lot of Martinez Auto Repair, and she watched Thomas carefully help each girl upstairs to their apartment, Aurora realized that she had crossed a line she could never uncross. She was no longer observing their lives from a safe distance. She was part of them now, invested in their well-being in ways that made her deception feel not just wrong, but potentially devastating. Devastating. Tonight, she had been allowed to act like a mother protecting her daughters, even if they didn't know that's what she was. Tomorrow, she would have to return to being Ms. Edwards, the friendly stranger who cared about them for mysterious reasons she couldn't explain. The contradiction was becoming impossible to sustain, and Aurora knew that the moment of truth was approaching, whether she was ready for it or not. The weeks following the hospital incident transformed Aurora's presence in their lives from occasional visitor to essential family friend. But with each passing day, the weight of her deception grew heavier until it felt like carrying stones in her chest. She had proven herself during their crisis, had earned a place in their daily routines through actions rather than explanations. But the foundation of lies upon which her relationship with the girls was built felt increasingly fragile and unsustainable. Aurora found herself lying awake in her hotel room each night, staring at the ceiling while wrestling with questions that had no easy answers. How long could she continue this charade? How much deeper could she allow herself to become embedded in their lives before the inevitable revelation would cause more harm than good? Every genuine smile from Sophie, every coding question from Maya, every philosophical observation from Grace added another layer to the web of deception she was weaving, making the eventual truth feel more devastating rather than liberating. Her phone buzzed constantly with messages from her Silicon Valley office, board meetings that required her attention, acquisition deals that needed her signature, strategic decisions that only she could make. But Aurora found herself increasingly unable to focus on the empire she had built, the professional accomplishments that had once defined her entire identity. How could quarterly earnings reports matter when Sophie was struggling with a particularly challenging art project? How could merger negotiations hold her attention when Maya had discovered a new programming language she wanted to master? How could any of it compare to the simple joy of watching Grace explain complex scientific concepts with the enthusiasm of someone who had never learned that learning was supposed to be work rather than adventure? She had started keeping detailed files in her hotel room, not the clinical reports from private investigators that had sustained her for 2 years, but personal observations about the people her daughters were becoming. Maya's leadership skills were developing rapidly, her natural ability to organize and problem solve making her a favorite among teachers and classmates alike. Sophie's artistic vision was maturing at an extraordinary pace, her work showing sophisticated understanding of color theory and composition that professionals spent years learning to master. Grace's intellectual curiosity seemed to expand exponentially with each new book she discovered, her questions becoming more complex and her insights more profound with each passing week. These were her children, carrying forward the best parts of her own intellect and creativity while developing qualities she had never possessed. Maya's instinctive protectiveness, Sophie's ability to find beauty in unexpected places, Grace's gift for making complex ideas accessible through simple explanations. They were everything she had hoped they would become, raised by someone who had given them the stability and unconditional love she had never been able to provide. But the more integrated she became into their lives, the more impossible her situation became. Thomas had begun including her in decisions about the girls' futures, asking her opinion about Maya's desire to attend coding camp, seeking her advice about Sophie's application to an advanced art program, consulting her about Grace's request to skip ahead in mathematics. Each conversation made her feel simultaneously honored and fraudulent, trusted with parental decisions about her own children while they remained unaware of her true identity. The breaking point came on a Thursday evening in late October as Aurora sat in the apartment above the garage, helping Grace with advanced physics homework, while Thomas prepared dinner and Maya worked on a website design project. Sophie was sprawled on the living room floor, sketching portraits of her family with the focused intensity that characterized all her artistic endeavors. "Ms. Edwards," Grace said suddenly, looking up from a complex equation about gravitational forces, "can I ask you something personal?" Aurora felt her heart skip, the careful equilibrium of their evening routine suddenly feeling precarious. "Of course, sweetheart. Do you have a family of your own? You're always here with us, but you never talk about your own home or your own people." The question hung in the air like a challenge Aurora couldn't avoid. She was acutely aware that Maya had stopped typing, that Sophie's pencil had paused mid-stroke, that Thomas had gone very still at the stove. Even at 10 years old, the girls were perceptive enough to notice the careful way Aurora deflected personal questions, the skill with which she redirected conversations away from her own history. Aurora began, then stopped. The practiced evasions she had perfected over the past months, suddenly feeling inadequate. "My family situation is complicated, Grace." "Complicated how?" Maya asked from her spot at the computer, her direct gaze fixed on Aurora with the intensity of someone who had learned to ask difficult questions when answers mattered. Aurora glanced at Thomas, who was watching this exchange with careful attention, his expression suggesting he had reached his own conclusions about the evasions and half-truths that characterized so many of Aurora's responses to personal inquiries. "Sometimes," Aurora said carefully, "adults make choices that separate them from the people they love most. Sometimes, circumstances make it impossible to be with your family, even when that's what you want more than anything else in the world." Sophie set down her pencil and approached Aurora with the gentle directness that made her such a gifted artist, the ability to see beyond surface appearances to the emotions underneath. "Are you sad about being separated from your family?" Aurora felt her carefully constructed composure beginning to crack. "Every day," she whispered, the truth emerging despite her best efforts to maintain the protective distance she had worked so hard to establish. "Why don't you just go back to them?" Grace asked with the logical simplicity of someone who hadn't yet learned that some problems couldn't be solved through straightforward action. "Because sometimes," Aurora said, her voice barely audible, "the people you love are better off without you. Sometimes love means staying away, even when it breaks your heart." Maya stood up from her computer, crossing the room to sit beside Aurora, on the couch, with the same protective instincts that had helped her sisters through the bus accident. "That doesn't make sense," she said with 10-year-old certainty. "If you love someone, you should be with them. That's what families do." "Maya's right," Sophie added, settling on Aurora's other side with artistic empathy that allowed her to see the pain Aurora was trying to hide. "Families stick together, even when things are hard. Uncle Tommy says that's what makes them families instead of just people who happen to live in the same place." Grace approached with her characteristic deliberation, studying Aurora's face with scientific precision. "You're crying," she observed matter-of-factly. "Are you thinking about your family right now?" Aurora looked at the three girls surrounding her with such natural affection and acceptance, offering comfort to someone they believed was a stranger dealing with mysterious personal struggles. The irony was overwhelming. Here were her own daughters, trying to console her for the loss of them, offering wisdom about family bonds, while remaining unaware that they were her family, that the separation she mourned was their separation. "Yes," Aurora admitted, her voice breaking slightly. "I think about them every day. I wonder if they're happy, if they're safe, if they know how much I love them even though I can't be with them." "Maybe they do know," Sophie said softly. Her artistic intuition, sensing something deeper in Aurora's words. "Maybe they can feel it somehow, even if you can't tell them directly." Thomas appeared in the doorway, having listened to this conversation with growing understanding. His expression was gentle but serious, the look of someone who had been fitting pieces together for weeks and had finally seen the complete picture. "Girls," he said quietly, "why don't you go get ready for bed? Ms. Edwards and I need to talk about some grown-up things." Maya, Sophie and Grace each hugged Aurora before heading to their bedrooms, their natural affection and concern making her heart ache with the weight of everything they didn't know. As their footsteps faded down the hallway, Thomas settled into the chair across from Aurora, his weathered hands folded calmly in his lap. "You're their mother," he said simply. Not a question, but a statement of fact, delivered with the certainty of someone who had been watching and waiting for confirmation of what he had already figured out. Aurora felt the last of her defenses crumble, the truth finally emerging after months of careful concealment. "Yes," she whispered, the single word carrying the weight of 2 years of separation, guilt, and desperate love. "I'm their mother. I'm their mother." The admission hung between them like a bridge neither was sure how to cross, the culmination of weeks of growing trust and understanding that had led inevitably to this moment of complete honesty. Thomas studied her face with the same careful attention he applied to diagnosing mechanical problems, looking for the truth beneath the surface that would help him understand how to move forward. "The question now," he said quietly, "is what we're going to do about it." The silence that followed Thomas's quiet acknowledgement stretched between them like a chasm filled with 2 years of unspoken truths, carefully guarded secrets, and the kind of emotional complexity that couldn't be resolved with simple answers or quick fixes. Aurora sat frozen on the couch, her hands trembling in her lap as she processed the reality that her carefully constructed deception had finally crumbled, leaving her exposed and vulnerable in ways she hadn't experienced since that desperate night when she had made the most impossible choice of her life. Thomas watched her with the steady patience that had served him well in raising 3 perceptive daughters, recognizing that this moment required the same careful approach he used when one of the girls was struggling with something too big for easy solutions. He could see the terror in Aurora's eyes, not fear of him or his reaction, but the bone-deep panic of someone who had built her entire relationship with her children on a foundation that had just shifted beneath her feet. "How long have you known?" Aurora finally managed, her voice barely above a whisper. "I suspected from the beginning," Thomas replied honestly, settling back in his chair with the deliberate calm of someone who understood that sudden movements could shatter fragile moments. "The way you looked at them, the way you knew things about them that strangers don't notice, the timing of when you showed up, the questions you asked. But I wasn't certain until tonight when Grace asked about your family and you looked at them, like someone mourning the loss of everything that mattered." Aurora closed her eyes, feeling the weight of months of deception pressing down on her chest like a physical force. "I never meant for it to go this far," she said, her words coming in short, uneven breaths. "I came here to make sure they were safe, to see how they were doing. I wasn't planning to get involved in their lives." "But you did get involved." Thomas observed without judgment, his tone carrying the simple statement of fact rather than accusation. You became part of their daily routine, part of their support system. They trust you, Aurora. They care about you. Maya asks about you when you're not here. Sophie saves her best drawings to show you. Grace explains her science projects to you like your family. The word family hit Aurora like a physical blow, carrying all the complexity of relationships, built on love but complicated by circumstances that defied simple categorization. They are my family, she whispered, tears finally spilling over, despite her efforts to maintain composure. They're my daughters, Thomas. I carried them for 9 months. I held them when they were babies. I was the first person to hear them laugh and see them smile. But I gave them up because I couldn't protect them, because staying with me would have put them in danger. Thomas leaned forward slightly, his expression softening with understanding rather than judgment. What kind of danger? Aurora took a shaky breath, knowing that the truth she was about to reveal would either damn her completely or help Thomas understand why she had made such a devastating choice. Their father wasn't a good man, she began, her voice growing stronger as she spoke. He was controlling, possessive, dangerous when he didn't get what he wanted. When I tried to leave him, he threatened to take them away from me, to hurt them, to punish me. He had connections, resources, legal power that I couldn't fight. She paused, remembering the terror of those final months when every day had felt like walking through a minefield, never knowing what might trigger the explosion that would destroy everything she loved. The night I left them at the mall, she continued, he had found us again. He was getting closer to tracking us down, and I knew that if he found them with me, he would either take them somewhere I could never reach them or hurt them to make me comply with his demands. So I made the only choice I could live with. I gave them the chance to be safe and loved by someone who could protect them in ways I couldn't. Thomas absorbed this information with the careful consideration of someone who understood that personal. Histories often contained complexities that couldn't be judged from the outside. And now, is he still a threat? He died in a car accident 18 months ago, Aurora said, her voice carrying a mixture of relief and lingering trauma. Drunk driving, finally caught up with him. That's when I started the private investigation, to find out what had happened to the girls when I discovered they were here with you. Why didn't you approach us then? Why the pretense about car repairs and business trips? Aurora looked toward the hallway where she could hear the faint sounds of the girls getting ready for bed. Maya helping Sophie brush her teeth, Grace reading aloud from whatever advanced textbook had captured her interest that week. The ordinary. Sounds of a family going through their evening routine. Sounds she had missed for 2 years and had been afraid she would never hear again. Because they were happy, she said simply. Because you had given them everything I couldn't. Stability, security, unconditional love, a community that supported them. Because I was terrified that showing up and disrupting their lives would be just another selfish act by the mother who had already abandoned them once. You didn't abandon them, Thomas said firmly, his voice carrying the conviction of someone who had spent considerable time thinking about the circumstances that had brought the girls into his life. You saved them. You made an impossible choice to protect them, and it worked. They're safe, they're thriving, they're loved. That's not abandonment, that's sacrifice. Aurora felt something crack inside her chest, a wall she had built around, her guilt and self-recrimination beginning to crumble in the face of understanding she hadn't expected to receive. But I lied to them, Thomas. For months, I've been pretending to be someone else, building relationships with them based on deception. How can they ever trust me when they find out the truth? Thomas was quiet for a long moment, considering the question with the same careful thought he applied to all the important decisions in his life. They're going to be hurt, he said finally. They're going to be confused, probably angry. Maya's going to feel like she should have figured it out sooner. Sophie's going to wonder why you didn't tell her when she was drawing those pictures of faces from her dreams. Grace is going to have 1,000 questions about genetics and family history and why adults make things so complicated. Aurora winced at each prediction, knowing Thomas was right about their individual reactions because he understood them so well. But they're also going to understand, Thomas continued, because I'm going to help them understand. Because we're going to tell them together, and we're going to explain that sometimes adults have to make choices that seem wrong, but are actually acts of love. Because they've been raised to believe that families come in all different shapes and sizes, and that love is what makes people family, not just biology. Aurora looked at him with surprise and cautious hope. Thomas met her gaze steadily, his expression carrying the same determined kindness that had made him stop for 3 frightened girls in a mall 2 years earlier. Those girls have been the center of my world for 2 years, Aurora. I love them like they're my own daughters, and I always will, but they're your daughters too, and they deserve to know their mother. They deserve to have both of us in their lives if that's what's best for them. Aurora felt her carefully maintained composure finally shatter completely. Years of guilt and longing and desperate hope pouring out in tears she had been holding back since the moment she had driven away from that mall. I don't know how to be their mother anymore, she sobbed. I don't know how to fit into the life you've built for them. Thomas stood and moved to the couch, sitting beside her with the same natural protectiveness he showed the girls when they were upset. You've been learning how to be their mother for months, he said gently. You've been helping with homework, celebrating their accomplishments, worrying about their safety, supporting their dreams. You've been their mother in every way that matters except the name. But what if they can't forgive me? What if knowing the truth changes how they feel about me? Then we'll deal with that when it happens, Thomas replied with the pragmatic wisdom that had carried him through 2 years of unexpected parenthood. But I think you're underestimating them. Those girls have hearts big enough to love a mechanic who became their father and a mother who sacrificed everything to keep them safe. They're going to need time to process everything, but they're going to love you, Aurora. They already do. They just don't know they're allowed to call it by its real name yet. As if summoned by their conversation, soft footsteps approached from the hallway, and Grace appeared in the doorway wearing her favorite pajamas and carrying the physics textbook she had been reading earlier. Uncle Tommy, she said softly. We can hear Miss Edwards crying. Is she okay? Should we come give her more hugs? Aurora looked at Thomas with panic in her eyes, but he shook his head gently, understanding that the moment of truth had arrived, whether they were ready for it or not. Actually, Grace, Thomas said, his voice steady and calm, I think it's time. We had a family meeting. Can you ask Maya and Sophie to come out here too? There's something very important we all need to talk about. Grace's eyes widened with the mixture of curiosity and concern that characterized her approach to any situation that seemed to carry unusual significance. She disappeared down the hallway, and within moments the sound of hushed conversation drifted from the bedrooms. Maya's responsible voice asking questions, Sophie's softer tones expressing worry about the tears she had heard, Grace's matter-of-fact explanations about family meetings and important conversations. Aurora felt her heart hammering against her ribs as footsteps approached, 3 sets of bare feet padding across the hardwood floor with the cautious energy of people who sensed that their familiar world was about to shift in ways they couldn't predict. Thomas reached over and squeezed her hand briefly, a gesture of support that reminded her she wouldn't have to face this moment alone. Maya appeared first, as always taking the lead, her dark hair still damp from washing her face, her expression alert and protective. Sophie followed close behind, her artistic eye immediately taking in the emotional tableau. Aurora's tear-streaked face, Thomas's unusually serious posture, the weight of unspoken significance that seemed to fill the room, like electricity before a storm. Grace brought up the rear, her physics textbook still tucked under her arm, as if intellectual curiosity could provide stability when everything else felt uncertain. "Is everything okay?" Maya asked, settling onto the carpet in front of the couch, with the automatic assumption that whatever was happening, her job was to help her sisters understand and process it. "Miss Edwards, you look really upset." Aurora looked at the three faces turned toward her with such genuine concern and affection, and felt the magnitude of what she was about to reveal crash over her like a wave. These weren't abstract concepts anymore. They were real people with their own thoughts, feelings, and reactions that she couldn't control or predict. They were her daughters, but they were also individuals who had spent 2 years building their own understanding of the world, their place in it, and the adults who mattered to them. "Girls," Thomas began, his voice carrying the gentle authority that had guided them through countless difficult conversations over the past 2 years. "Sometimes adults have to make very hard choices to protect the people they love. And sometimes those choices create situations that are complicated to explain." Sophie tilted her head with the observational skills that made her such a gifted artist. "Are you talking about Miss Edwards? About her family that she can't be with?" "In a way, yes," Thomas replied, glancing at Aurora, who nodded slightly, giving him permission to continue. "But it's more complicated than that. Miss Edwards hasn't been completely honest with us about who she is." Maya's protective instincts immediately sharpened, her posture straightening as she prepared to defend her family from whatever threat this revelation might represent. "What do you mean?" Aurora took a shaky breath, knowing that the words she was about to speak would change everything forever. "Maya, Sophie, Grace," she began, her voice trembling despite her efforts to remain calm. "I haven't been honest with you because I was scared that if you knew the truth, you might not want me in your lives anymore." "What truth?" Grace asked with her characteristic directness, though even she seemed to sense that this wasn't one of her usual scientific inquiries that could be answered with facts and figures. "The truth is," Aurora continued, her voice growing stronger as she committed fully to this moment, "I'm not just Miss Edwards who came to have her car fixed. I'm Aurora Edwards, and I'm your mother." The words fell into the room like stones dropped into still water, creating ripples of silence that seemed to expand and multiply with each passing second. Maya's face went completely blank, her young mind clearly struggling to process information that didn't fit into any category she had prepared for. Sophie's artistic eye widened with recognition, as if she was suddenly seeing a painting she had been trying to remember for years. Grace simply stared, her scientific brain working through the implications with the same systematic approach she applied to complex equations. "That's not possible," Maya said finally, her voice carrying the flat certainty of someone rejecting data that didn't compute. "Our mother left us at the mall. She abandoned us because she didn't want us anymore." Aurora felt each word like a physical blow, but she forced herself to remain steady. "I never abandoned you, Maya. I left you there because I was trying to protect you from someone who wanted to hurt us. Your father was a dangerous man, and I was terrified that if he found us together, he would take you away from me or hurt you, to punish me." "You're lying," Maya said, standing up abruptly, her young face flushed with anger and confusion. "You've been lying to us for months, pretending to be someone else, and now you're making up stories about protecting us. If you really cared about us, you would have found a way to stay. You would have fought for us." Aurora's composure cracked completely at the accusation, tears streaming down her face as she tried to find words that could bridge the gap between a 10-year-old's understanding of how the world should work and the harsh realities that had forced her impossible choice. "I did fight for you," she whispered. "Every day I fought for you." But sometimes fighting means making choices that look like giving up, even when they're the hardest thing you'll ever do. Sophie had been silent during this exchange, her artist's intuition processing the emotional undercurrents in ways that pure logic couldn't capture. Finally, she spoke, her voice soft but clear. "I've been drawing you," she said, looking directly at Aurora. "In my sketchbook, I've been drawing faces that felt familiar, but I couldn't remember where I'd seen them. They all looked like you." Aurora nodded, her heart breaking at the innocence in Sophie's voice. "You have an amazing memory, sweetheart. Even when you were very small, you could remember faces and expressions better than most adults." Grace had been characteristically quiet during this revelation, her scientific mind working through the evidence with methodical precision. "The genetics make sense," she said finally, her voice carrying the matter-of-fact tone she used when solving complex problems. "Maya's leadership abilities, Sophie's artistic talent, my intellectual curiosity, they had to come from somewhere, and Uncle Tommy always said we were too similar for it to be coincidental." "Grace," Maya snapped, her anger now directed at her younger sister, "don't you dare try to make this okay with science. She lied to us. For months, she sat in our kitchen, helped with our homework, pretended to care about us, and the whole time she was lying about who she was." Thomas intervened gently, his voice carrying the calm authority that had helped them navigate countless smaller crises over the past 2 years. "Maya, I understand why you're angry. You have every right to feel hurt and confused, but Ms. Edwards, your mother, she wasn't pretending to care about you. That was real. Everything she's done, every way she's helped and supported you, that was all real." "How can you take her side?" Maya demanded, turning her anger toward Thomas now. "She left us. She made us think we weren't wanted. And now she shows up and expects us to just forgive her because she has some story about protecting us?" "I'm not taking sides," Thomas replied steadily. "I'm trying to help all of us understand a situation that's more complicated than any of us want it to be. Your mother made a choice that saved your lives, Maya. She gave you up so that you could be safe and loved, even though it broke her heart." Sophie stood up suddenly and crossed to Aurora, studying her face with the intense focus she usually reserved for her most important art projects. "Are you really our mom?" she asked softly. "Yes," Aurora whispered, reaching out tentatively to touch Sophie's cheek. "You're my Sophie, who could draw beautiful pictures before she could write her name, and Maya is my Maya, who organized all her toys by color when she was 3 years old. And Grace is my Grace, who asked me why the sky was blue when she was barely old enough to form complete sentences." Sophie's eyes filled with tears, but she didn't pull away from Aurora's touch. "I missed you," she said, the words emerging as if she was surprised to discover they were true. "I didn't remember missing you, but I think I did." Maya watched this interaction with visible distress, her anger warring with confusion and a longing she didn't want to acknowledge. "This is too much," she said, backing toward the hallway. I need to think about this. I need to be alone." Before anyone could respond, Maya had fled to her bedroom, the sound of her door closing echoing through the apartment like punctuation at the end of a chapter that no one was sure how to continue. Grace approached Aurora with her characteristic deliberation, studying her with scientific curiosity tempered by emotional uncertainty. "If you're really our mother," she said slowly, "does that mean you're going to take us away from Uncle Tommy? From Uncle Tommy?" The question revealed the fear underlying all their reactions, not just confusion about the past, but terror about what this revelation might mean for their future. Aurora looked at Thomas, seeing her own determination reflected in his steady gaze. "No, sweetheart," Aurora said firmly. "Uncle Tommy is your father in every way that matters. I'm not here to take you away from the life you've built." I'm here because I love you, and I want to be part of your family if you'll let me, all of us together. Grace nodded slowly, processing this information with the same systematic approach she applied to all new concepts. So we could have 2 parents instead of 1, if that's what you want, Aurora replied. If you can forgive me for not being honest from the beginning. Sophie had settled beside Aurora on the couch, leaning against her with the natural affection that had characterized their relationship from the first day. I think I can forgive you, she said quietly. Uncle Tommy always says that sometimes people do the wrong thing for the right reasons. From the hallway came the sound of Maya's bedroom door opening, followed by slow footsteps approaching the living room. She appeared in the doorway, her face streaked with tears, but her expression more thoughtful than angry. I have questions, Maya said, her voice carrying the determined clarity of someone who had decided to face difficult truths rather than run from them. A lot of questions, and I'm still mad about the lying. But if Uncle Tommy says you were trying to protect us, and if Grace thinks the science makes sense, and if Sophie can forgive you, she paused, taking a shaky breath. Maybe I can try to understand. Aurora felt something loosen in her chest, hope beginning to replace the terror that had consumed her for the past hour. I'll answer every question you have, she promised. And I'll understand if you need time to be angry with me. I'll understand whatever you need to feel about this. Good, Maya said, settling back onto the carpet with her sisters, because this is going to take a while to figure out. As the 4 of them, soon to be 5 when Thomas joined the circle, settled in for what would undoubtedly be a long night of questions, explanations, and tentative steps toward a new understanding of what their family could become, Aurora realized that the hardest part wasn't over. But for the first time in 2 years, she was facing it with her daughters beside her instead of carrying the burden alone. The days following the revelation passed in a delicate dance of tentative steps forward and cautious retreats, as each member of their newly reconfigured family learned to navigate emotional territory that had no clear map or established rules. Aurora had moved from the Riverside Inn to a small furnished apartment 3 blocks away from the garage, close enough to be available when needed, far enough to give everyone space to process the seismic shift in their relationships without the pressure of constant proximity. Maya had appointed herself the family's chief investigator, approaching her newfound mother with the same systematic methodology she applied to debugging complex code. She would arrive home from school each afternoon, armed with carefully prepared questions, settling at the kitchen table with a notebook where she recorded Aurora's answers with the precision of someone conducting a formal interview rather than getting to know a parent. Tell me about when we were babies, Maya demanded one Thursday afternoon, her pen poised over a fresh page. I want to know specific details, not just general things that anyone could guess. Aurora had learned to appreciate Maya's directness, recognizing it as a coping mechanism rather than hostility. You were born first, she began, settling into the rhythm of storytelling that had become their afternoon routine. 7 minutes before Sophie, 12 minutes before Grace. You came out looking around the delivery room like you were already trying to figure out how everything worked. Maya scribbled notes while Aurora continued, describing how Maya had been the first to sleep through the night, but also the first to figure out how to climb out of her crib, how she had organized her baby toys by color and size before she could properly walk, how she had appointed herself the unofficial guardian of her sisters from the moment they were all placed in the same nursery. What about Sophie? Maya asked, her questions extending beyond her own history to encompass the complete family narrative she was working to reconstruct. Sophie hummed before she could talk, Aurora said, smiling at the memory. She would lie in her crib making these beautiful little melodies, like she was composing songs in her head. And she never crawled the normal way. She would roll everywhere because she liked how the world looked different from each angle. Sophie, who had been sketching quietly at the counter, looked up with interest. "I don't remember humming as a baby, but I still make up songs sometimes when I'm drawing." "Music and art are connected," Aurora explained. "Your brain sees patterns and rhythms in everything. That's why your drawings have such natural composition. You're hearing the visual harmony even when you don't realize it." Grace had taken a different approach to processing her mother's return, treating it like a fascinating scientific experiment that required careful observation and analysis. She would study Aurora with the same intensity she applied to her physics textbooks, looking for behavioral patterns and genetic connections that could help her understand how families worked when they were reassembled after years of separation. "We have the same hands," Grace announced one evening, holding her palm up next to Aurora's during homework time. "The same finger-length ratios, the same way of holding pencils, and we both tap our fingers when we're thinking hard about problems." Aurora looked down at their hands pressed together and felt her throat tighten with emotion. "We do have the same hands," she agreed. "When you were little, you used to grab my finger when you were falling asleep. You had the strongest grip for such a tiny person." "Genetics are fascinating," Grace said with satisfaction, as if Aurora's return had provided her with an excellent case study in hereditary traits. "I've been reading about epigenetics, how environmental factors can influence gene expression. It's interesting that our intellectual curiosity manifested in similar ways, even though we were separated for 2 years." Thomas watched these individual reconciliation processes with the patient wisdom of someone who understood that healing happened differently for different people. He made sure Maya felt supported in her need for facts and verification, encouraged Sophie's artistic processing of complex emotions, and provided Grace with additional scientific resources to help her contextualize their family situation through the academic frameworks that gave her comfort. But it was the small, unplanned moments that seemed to create the most meaningful progress. Like when Maya automatically saved a seat for Aurora at Sophie's school art show, or when Grace asked Aurora to explain a particularly challenging physics concept because "you understand how my brain works," or when Sophie wordlessly handed Aurora a tissue during a movie scene that made them both cry. The breakthrough came 3 weeks after the revelation, on a Saturday morning when Aurora arrived to find chaos in the Martinez household. Thomas had been called away on an emergency repair job, leaving the girls to fend for themselves while he dealt with a stranded motorist on the highway. Maya was attempting to make breakfast while simultaneously trying to fix a computer problem that was preventing her from accessing an important school assignment. Sophie had spilled paint on her favorite art project and was in tears about having to start over. Grace was frustrated because she couldn't find the advanced mathematics textbook she needed to complete her weekend homework. Aurora surveyed the scene and immediately shifted into crisis management mode, the same executive skills that had built her technology empire now applied to domestic emergency response. "Maya, let me look at your computer while you focus on breakfast," she said, rolling up her sleeves with practiced efficiency. "Sophie, we can fix the paint spill, sometimes accidents. Create the most interesting artistic effects. Grace, I think your math book is on the coffee table under yesterday's newspaper." For the next 2 hours, Aurora moved through their small apartment like someone who belonged there, troubleshooting Maya's coding problem with the expertise of someone who understood both technology and the way Maya's logical mind worked. She helped Sophie transform the paint accident into an intentional design element that actually improved the overall composition. She worked through advanced calculus problems with Grace, explaining concepts in ways that built on Grace's existing knowledge, while challenging her to think more deeply. When Thomas returned from his emergency call, he found the 4 of them clustered around the kitchen table, Maya's computer displaying her completed assignment, Sophie's art project spread out to dry with its new accidental on-purpose design flourishes, Grace's mathematics homework organized in neat piles with Aurora's, explanations written in careful margin notes. "Everything under control?" Thomas asked, though the answer was obvious from the scene of domestic harmony he had walked into. "Aurora saved the day," Maya said, and for the first time since the revelation, there was no hesitation in her voice when she spoke Aurora's name. "She fixed my computer bug in 10 minutes, and she explained it so I won't make the same mistake again. She made my painting better," Sophie added, holding up her project to show Thomas the creative solution they had developed together. "Sometimes messing up creates new possibilities. She understands advanced mathematics the way I do," Grace concluded with scientific satisfaction. "She thinks in the same logical patterns, but with more experience to draw from." Thomas looked at Aurora, seeing something different in her posture and expression, a confidence and natural authority that hadn't been there during her months of careful deception. This was Aurora in her element, not pretending to be someone else but fully herself, using all her considerable skills in service of her daughter's needs. "Thank you," Thomas said simply, the words carrying weight far beyond the immediate crisis she had helped resolve. "Thank you for letting me help," Aurora replied, and Thomas understood that they were talking about more than computer problems and art projects and mathematics homework. That evening, as Aurora prepared to return to her temporary apartment, Maya approached her with something that looked almost like shyness. "Would you?" Maya began, then stopped, clearly working up courage for whatever she wanted to ask. "Would you like to stay for dinner tomorrow? Not because of an emergency or anything, just because we want you to." Aurora felt her heart stop, then restart with a rhythm that felt stronger and more hopeful than anything she had experienced since the day she had left 3 baby girls at a mall food court. "I would love that more than anything," she said, meaning every word. As she drove back to her apartment that night, Aurora realized that they had turned a corner. The questions weren't finished, the healing wasn't complete, and there would undoubtedly be more difficult conversations ahead. But for the first time since she had made the impossible choice to give them up, Aurora believed that her daughters might actually want her to stay. Not as a replacement for Thomas, not as someone trying to reclaim a role she had forfeited, but as an additional source of love and support in lives that had room for both the father who had chosen them and the mother who had never stopped loving them. The tentative reconciliation was becoming something stronger, the foundation of a family that was bigger and more complex than traditional definitions allowed, but no less real for all its unconventional origins. 6 months after the revelation, the Martinez-Edwards household had settled into a rhythm that surprised everyone, with its natural harmony. Aurora had moved into a larger apartment, just 2 blocks from the garage, close enough that the girls could walk between both homes freely, treating the space between as an extension of their neighborhood rather than a barrier between separate lives. What had once been Thomas's small apartment above the garage had expanded into a broader definition of home that encompassed multiple spaces and twice as many possibilities. The morning routines had evolved to accommodate everyone's strengths and preferences. Thomas still handled breakfast and school preparations during weekdays, his steady competence providing the foundation of predictability that growing minds needed. But weekends had become Aurora's domain, elaborate brunches where she experimented, with recipes that challenged the girls' palates while teaching them about nutrition, chemistry, and the cultural histories embedded in different cuisines. "The pancakes are perfectly fluffy this morning," Grace observed on a Saturday in late spring, studying the golden stack on her plate with scientific appreciation. The baking powder reaction created optimal air bubble distribution. "That's because Aurora taught us about the chemistry of leavening agents, Maya said, expertly flipping another batch while Aurora supervised from her position at the stove, where she was simultaneously preparing fresh fruit and monitoring the coffee maker. Understanding the science makes the cooking more predictable. Sophie looked up from her sketchbook, where she was drawing the scene unfolding around her. Her family working together in the kitchen, sunlight streaming through windows, the organized chaos of people comfortable enough with each other to move in close quarters without collision. I like how we all have different jobs, but they fit together, she said, like a really good composition where every part belongs. Thomas appeared in the doorway, having spent the early morning reviewing quarterly books for the garage, his hair still slightly mussed from sleep, and his expression carrying the content satisfaction of someone who had awakened to the sounds of his family preparing for a day they would spend together. "Smells incredible in here," he said, accepting the cup of coffee Aurora handed him with the automatic familiarity of people who had learned each other's morning preferences through months of shared routines. "Maya's getting scary good at the pancake technique," Aurora replied, watching their eldest daughter navigate the griddle with the same systematic precision she applied to all her projects. "I think she's ready to start experimenting with more advanced breakfast chemistry." "Can we make soufflés next weekend?" Maya asked hopefully, her interest in cooking having grown from necessity into genuine curiosity about the intersection of science and culinary arts. "Soufflés require very precise timing," Aurora said thoughtfully, "but I think you're ready for that level of challenge. We'll need to coordinate with Uncle Tommy's schedule, though, because soufflés wait for no one." These conversations had become typical of their reconfigured family life, practical planning woven together with educational opportunities, everyone's interests and abilities considered in decisions that affected the household. Aurora had discovered that her executive management skills translated surprisingly well to family logistics, while Thomas's steady pragmatism provided the grounding that kept ambitious projects tethered to realistic expectations. The garage itself had become a more dynamic space, with Aurora contributing her technology expertise to Thomas's automotive work in ways that benefited the entire business. She had helped him develop a digital inventory system that streamlined his parts ordering, created a customer database that improved service scheduling, and designed a simple website that brought new clients from neighboring communities who had discovered his reputation through online reviews and social media presence. "Mrs. Patterson says she found us through the website," Thomas reported during one of their weekly business planning sessions, which had evolved naturally from Aurora's desire to contribute meaningfully to the family's financial stability. 3 new customers this week from the online appointment system. "The integration is working better than I expected," Aurora replied, reviewing the analytics she had set up to track their digital outreach. Word-of-mouth recommendations are still the primary driver, but having an online presence makes it easier for people to find us when they need automotive services. Maya looked up from her homework, which she was completing at the garage's small office desk, while Thomas and Aurora worked on business planning. "Are you going to make Uncle Tommy's garage into a huge corporate chain?" Aurora laughed, recognizing the concern behind Maya's question. "Absolutely not. The goal is to make the existing business more efficient and sustainable, not to change its fundamental character. This garage succeeds because it's personal, trustworthy, and connected to the community. Growing too fast would destroy exactly what makes it special." "Good," Maya said with satisfaction, "because I like it the way it is, just better organized." These kinds of integration projects had become Aurora's way of contributing to their shared life without overwhelming the carefully balanced ecosystem that Thomas had created. She brought her corporate experience to bear on practical problems, while respecting the values and relationships that had sustained the garage for years before her arrival. The girls had developed their own ways of navigating between their two parental figures, learning to appreciate different strengths and seek different kinds of support depending on their needs. Thomas remained their primary source of comfort during emotional difficulties, his steady presence and unconditional acceptance providing the security that allowed them to take risks and make mistakes. Aurora had become their resource for intellectual challenges and strategic problem-solving, her analytical mind and professional experience helping them expand their understanding of what was possible in their academic and creative pursuits. "I want to apply for the advanced mathematics program at the high school," Grace announced one evening during dinner at Aurora's apartment. Her statement delivered with the same matter-of-fact tone she used for most observations. "That's a significant academic jump," Thomas said thoughtfully. "Are you sure you're ready for that level of coursework?" "The curriculum requirements don't seem particularly challenging based on my current comprehension level," Grace replied with characteristic confidence. "But I'm concerned about the social dynamics of being significantly younger than my classmates." Aurora leaned forward with interest, recognizing an opportunity to apply her experience with high-stakes environments to Grace's situation. "What specific social challenges are you worried about? Integration difficulties, communication barriers, potential isolation due to age-related developmental differences?" Grace listed with scientific precision. "Those are valid concerns," Aurora agreed, "but they're also manageable challenges if you approach them strategically. In my professional experience, being the youngest person in advanced environments is initially difficult, but ultimately advantageous, if you focus on contributing value rather than trying to fit in socially." Thomas nodded, appreciating Aurora's ability to take Grace's concerns seriously while providing practical guidance based on real-world experience. "What do you think would help you feel more prepared?" The conversation that followed exemplified the collaborative parenting approach they had developed, Thomas providing emotional support and encouraging Grace to trust her abilities, Aurora offering strategic advice and concrete preparation techniques, both adults working together to help Grace make an informed decision about her academic future. Similar collaborative discussions had become routine parts of their family life. Sophie's interest in applying to specialized art programs received both Thomas's emotional encouragement and Aurora's practical guidance about building portfolios and navigating competitive application processes. Maya's coding projects benefited from Thomas's patient teaching about breaking complex problems into manageable steps and Aurora's professional insights about software development and technology career paths. "I think we've figured something out here," Thomas said one evening as they cleaned up after a particularly successful family dinner, the girls having migrated to their various evening activities while the adults handled the practical aftermath of feeding a household of 5 people. "What's that?" Aurora asked, drying dishes with the automatic efficiency of someone who had learned to appreciate domestic routines as expressions of care rather than chores to be completed. "How to be a family." "That works," Thomas replied simply. "Not the family any of us planned, but the family we actually are." Aurora felt something settle in her chest, a sense of belonging that she had never quite believed would be possible. "Do you think the girls feel that way too?" As if summoned by their conversation, Maya appeared in the kitchen doorway, her laptop tucked under her arm and her expression carrying the particular satisfaction of someone who had successfully completed a challenging project. "Aurora, can you review my code before I submit this assignment?" Maya asked. "I want to make sure the logic structure is as elegant as it can be." "Of course," Aurora replied, setting down her dish towel and following Maya to the living room where Sophie was sketching while Grace read advanced physics. All 3 of them comfortable enough in this space to focus on their individual pursuits, while remaining part of the same shared environment. As Aurora settled beside Maya to review programming logic while Thomas finished the kitchen cleanup, and the sounds of Sophie's humming mixed with Grace's occasional questions about quantum mechanics, she realized that Thomas was right. They had figured something out, how to be a family that honored its complicated origins while building something entirely new, something that belonged to all of them equally. It wasn't the life any of them had imagined, but it was a life they had chosen together, day by day, through countless small decisions to trust each other and keep building bridges across the spaces that had once seemed impossible to cross. 1 year after the revelation, on a crisp autumn morning that painted the trees around Riverside Heights, in shades of gold and crimson, Aurora stood in the backyard behind her apartment, watching Thomas teach Maya how to change the oil in her newly acquired used car, a modest Honda Civic that represented her first step toward the independence that came with approaching her 12th birthday. The sight filled Aurora with the kind of quiet contentment she had never imagined possible during those dark months when she had believed her daughters were lost to her forever. Remember, the oil drain plug has reverse threads, Thomas was explaining, patiently, his weathered hands guiding Maya's smaller ones as she positioned the wrench correctly. If you force it the wrong direction, you'll strip the threads and create a much bigger problem. Left to loosen, right to tighten, Maya recited, her systematic mind cataloging each step of the process with the same precision she applied to coding problems. But this particular plug is engineered backwards to prevent accidental loosening during normal operation. Exactly right, Thomas confirmed, his pride in her understanding evident in his voice. Understanding the reasoning behind the design makes you a better mechanic and a safer driver. Sophie looked up from her easel, where she was painting the autumn landscape with watercolors that captured not just the visual beauty of the season, but somehow also conveyed the emotional warmth of watching her family work together. Maya's going to be the most prepared 12-year-old driver in the history of Riverside Heights, she observed with artistic satisfaction. I'm not going to be driving for 4 more years, Maya protested, though her obvious excitement about learning automotive maintenance belied her practical objection. But when you do start driving, Aurora said, approaching the group with a tray of hot cider and fresh donuts from the bakery downtown, you'll understand how your car works, not just how to operate it. That's going to make you safer and more confident. Grace emerged from the apartment carrying her latest physics textbook and a notebook filled with equations she was working through for fun rather than homework. Statistical analysis shows that drivers with mechanical knowledge have significantly lower accident rates and better vehicle maintenance records, she announced, settling onto the porch steps where she could observe the oil change process while continuing her independent study. This kind of multi-generational knowledge transfer had become typical of their weekend family time. Thomas shared his practical skills with anyone interested in learning, while Aurora contributed her technological expertise and strategic thinking to projects that ranged from academic planning to small business development. The girls moved freely between both sources of guidance, creating their own synthesis of old-fashioned craftsmanship and modern innovation. The garage itself had become something of a community hub, with Aurora's technological improvements attracting customers from a wider geographic area, while Thomas's reputation for honest work and fair prices maintained the personal relationships that formed the foundation of his business success. They had recently hired Jake Miller, now graduated from high school, as a part-time assistant, giving him valuable work experience while allowing Thomas to focus on the more complex diagnostic work that fully utilized his expertise. Mrs. Chen wants to know if we can look at her son's motorcycle next week, Jake announced, emerging from the garage with grease on his hands and satisfaction in his voice. She says she trusts us more than the dealer because we actually explain what we're doing. Schedule it for Tuesday afternoon, Thomas replied, helping Maya clean her hands with the specialized soap that removed automotive fluids without damaging skin. That'll give us time to research the specific model and make sure we have the right parts on hand. Aurora smiled at the casual use of "we" that had evolved naturally over the months as she had become more integrated into the garage's operations. Her role had expanded beyond the initial technological improvements to include customer service optimization, supply chain management, and strategic planning for gradual business growth that maintained quality while improving profitability. Speaking of scheduling, Aurora said, consulting the shared family calendar on her phone, don't forget that Sophie's art show opening is Thursday evening. The community center is expecting quite a crowd. Sophie's artistic development had accelerated dramatically over the past year, her natural talent enhanced by formal instruction that Aurora had arranged through connections with local art schools and professional artists. Her latest series of family portraits, realistic depictions that somehow also captured the emotional essence of their unconventional household, had attracted attention from gallery owners in larger cities who were interested in exhibiting work. By such a young but gifted artist, I'm nervous about people seeing my paintings, Sophie admitted, mixing a new shade of orange that perfectly matched the maple leaves overhead. What if they don't understand what I was trying to show? Art isn't about other people understanding your exact intentions, Aurora replied gently, settling beside Sophie to watch her work. It's about creating something authentic that connects with people's emotions. Your paintings do that beautifully. Besides, Maya added with big sister confidence, anyone who doesn't appreciate your work obviously doesn't know anything about art, and their opinions don't matter anyway. Grace looked up from her physics equations with characteristic directness. Statistical probability suggests that the majority of viewers will respond positively to Sophie's work based on the positive reactions we've observed from everyone who has seen her paintings so far. Thomas chuckled at Grace's scientific approach to art appreciation, while Aurora marveled once again at how naturally the girls supported each other's individual achievements. This mutual encouragement had become one of the strongest features of their reconstructed family. Each person's success was celebrated by everyone, creating an environment where taking risks and pursuing ambitious goals felt safe rather than threatening. I have an announcement, Maya said suddenly, wiping her hands on a clean rag and adopting the formal posture she used when delivering important information. I've been accepted into the summer coding intensive at the State University. It's a 4-week program for high school students, but they're making an exception for me because of my portfolio. Aurora felt her heart swell with pride, while Thomas beamed with the satisfaction of someone who had always believed in Maya's exceptional abilities. That's incredible, Maya. When does it start? June 15th. But there's something else. Maya paused dramatically, clearly enjoying having everyone's attention. They've offered me a partial scholarship, but I would need to pay for housing and meals. I've been saving my allowance, but I don't have enough yet. We'll figure out the funding, Thomas said immediately, his automatic response reflecting the same commitment to the girls' opportunities that had characterized his parenting from the beginning. Actually, Aurora interjected gently, I'd like to contribute to Maya's summer program costs as an investment in her future and as a way of supporting something that's clearly important to her development. Maya's eyes widened with surprise and gratitude. You would do that? Of course I would, Aurora replied. You're my daughter, and investing in your education is one of the most important things I can do as your parent. The word parent still carried special weight when Aurora used it, representing a relationship that had been rebuilt through daily actions rather than simply inherited through biology. But the girls had long since stopped treating it as unusual or complicated. Aurora was their mother, Thomas was their father, and the fact that their family structure didn't match traditional templates was simply an interesting characteristic, rather than a problematic complication. As the afternoon progressed and they moved inside for dinner preparation, Aurora found herself reflecting on the journey that had brought them to this moment. 2 years ago, she had been a successful but lonely businesswoman whose greatest achievement felt hollow because it couldn't fill the hole left by the daughters she had been forced to give up. Thomas had been a kind-hearted mechanic, raising 3 brilliant girls with love and limited resources, wondering if he was providing enough opportunities for their exceptional talents. Now, they were a family of 5 people who had chosen each other day by day through countless small acts of trust and commitment. Maya was thriving academically while learning practical skills that would serve her throughout her life. Sophie was developing her artistic gifts while remaining grounded in the values of kindness and authenticity that Thomas had instilled from the beginning. Grace was pursuing her intellectual curiosity with the support of adults who understood and encouraged her unique way of processing the world. "I have something to tell you all," Aurora said, as they settled around the dinner table that had become the center of their family life. "I've made a decision about my business in Silicon Valley." Everyone looked at her expectantly, their expressions ranging from curiosity to concern. "I'm transferring operational control to my management team and establishing a permanent home office here in Riverside Heights," Aurora continued. "I'll still be involved in strategic decision-making, but I don't need to be physically present in California to run the company effectively." "Does that mean you're staying?" Sophie asked hopefully. "It means I'm home," Aurora replied simply. "This is where my family is, so this is where I belong." Thomas reached across the table to squeeze her hand, his expression conveying understanding and approval. Maya, Sophie, and Grace exchanged glances that held entire conversations about the significance of Aurora's decision. "Good," Grace said with characteristic directness. "We function better as a complete family unit than we did as separate components." As laughter filled the room and conversation turned to practical matters of Aurora's business transition and the girls' upcoming school projects, Aurora realized that she had finally found what she had been searching for without knowing it existed, a family that was stronger for having been built through choice rather than simply inherited through circumstance. Outside, the first stars were appearing in the darkening sky over Riverside Heights, and inside, 5 people who had found each other against impossible odds were planning a future that promised to be as extraordinary as the love that had made it possible. They were home, all of them, in the truest sense of the word. Not just a place, but a belonging that could weather any storm, because it was founded on the unshakable truth that sometimes the best families are the ones we build ourselves, brick by brick, day by day, through the simple but profound act of choosing to love each other completely. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any upload from us.